Obama's friend Ayers, killed 25 million Americans. Barack Obama's longtime association with unrepentant weather underground terrorists Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dohrn has caused the presidential candidate some serious political problems. In spite of efforts by Obama's friends in the media to suppress, contain, or explain away the issue, more information about the Ayers-Obama ties has continued to come out. In recent weeks, a number of websites have posted text, audio, or video of an interview with Larry Grathwohl from the 1982 video documentary No Place to Hide, The Strategy and Tactics of Terrorism by the Western Goals Foundation. I worked on that video as a researcher and went undercover into some of the terrorist groups and their support networks. Larry Grathwohl was one of the experts/witnesses we interviewed for the documentary. He had been undercover inside the weather underground and had worked closely with Ayers, Dohrn, and their fellow terrorists. In No Place to Hide, Grathwohl explains that the weathermen actually believed that they would be successful in overthrowing the U.S. government and that, with the help of the Cubans, Chinese, Russians, and North Vietnamese, they would occupy America. Americans would have to be re-educated in camps, similar to what the communists did in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and other countries they had taken over. Here is one of the chilling revelations Larry Grathwohl made in the film. I asked, well, what is going to happen to those people we can re-educate, that are die-hard capitalists? And the reply was that they'd have to be eliminated. And when I pursued this further, they estimated they would have to eliminate 25 million people in these re-education centers. And when I say, eliminate, I mean, kill. 25 million people. I want you to imagine sitting in a room with 25 people, most of which have graduate degrees, from Columbia and other well-known educational centers, and hear them figuring out the logistics for the elimination of 25 million people, and they were dead serious. On October 28, Bob Owens of PajamasMedia.com published a recent interview he had conducted with Grathwohl, expanding on his statements in No Place to Hide 26 years ago. Here is a portion of the interview, which can be read in entirety at PajamasMedia.com. Pajamas Media, you stated in your interview in No Place to Hide that you wanted us to imagine sitting in a room with 25 people, most of which have graduate degrees, from Columbia and other well-known educational centers, and hear them figuring out the logistics for the elimination of 25 million people. A lot of people have now had the opportunity to listen to you and contemplate the horrors these people planned. Can you recall who these people are by name, and who the ringleaders of this plan were? Larry Grathwohl, conversations regarding this occurred in Cincinnati, Detroit, Flint, and Buffalo. Participants included Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dohrn, Mark Rudd, Linda Evans, Jeff Jones, and many others. Pajamas Media, was this merely an academic matter to them, or were they serious about killing 25 million Americans that would not bend to their political will? Larry Grathwohl, I suppose you could consider this a purely academic discussion in that the weathermen never had the opportunity to implement their political ends. However, I can assure you that this was not the case. There was an absolute belief that they, along with the international revolutionary movement, would cause the collapse of the United States and that they would be in charge. Nixon was of great concern in how his end would be conducted. This may sound absurd in today's context, but the weatherman believed they would succeed. Pajamas Media, scattered news accounts on the internet note that you were instrumental in foiling weather underground attacks in February of 1970, in Detroit. The weathermen built 2 bombs targeting the Detroit Police Officers Association, BOA, building and the 13th Precinct. Were the goals of these attacks symbolic property damage as were some other weathermen attacks, or were these targets selected to kill police officers? Larry Grathwohl, the instructions I received from Billy Ayers was that the bombs to be used in Detroit must have shrapnel, fence staples, specifically, and fire potential, propane bottles. The intention was to kill police officers. Pajamas Media, one of the Detroit bombs was to be placed on the side of the BOA building, and the blast was likely to cause damage to the adjacent Red Barn restaurant, which had mostly African American customers. Who ordered the attack, And what did he say when you told him that innocent civilians would be killed? Larry Grathwohl, when I objected to Billy Ayers that more innocent people would be killed in the restaurant, he replied, "Innocent people have to die in a revolution." Billy also acknowledged during a criticism session in Buffalo that Bernadine placed the bomb at the Park police station, which resulted in the death of police officer McDonnell. Pajamas Media. Bill Ayers came out of hiding around 1980, became a college professor, and has served on numerous boards and foundations. Do you think he's changed in his radicalism? Larry Grathwohl, has Billy changed? I hardly think so. After a decade of bombings and a life on the run as a fugitive terrorist, Ayers decided to resurface. Due to technicalities, he got off scot-free. Ayers remains completely unrepentant and is, among other things, an avid fan of Venezuela's communist dictator Hugo Chavez, whose guest he has been more than once. In an interview with journalists David Horowitz and Peter Collier, who were comrades of his in SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, but have since converted to the right, Ayers exulted, "Guilty as hell, free as a bird, America is a great country." In the 2001 New York Times interview he said, "I don't regret setting bombs. I feel we didn't do enough." Ayers and his former SDS and Weather Underground comrades are now training a new generation of activists through new Students for a Democratic Society, and SDS, Dohrn, and other militant leftist groups that are backing Obama.